Good evening, everyone. It is Life in the Movies podcast. It is that time of the month once again. I'm one half of your co-host. My name is Ryan Cam, joined as always by the great and powerful Jacob Martin. Jacob, how you doing?
I'm doing really good tonight.
We are here for our monthly meeting, and this was Jacob's choice this month, and he chose the technically 1970 release, but technically it's also being re-released for the first time in decades, The Beatles' Let It Be. So technically this was released in 1970, but it is getting a remastered and restoration and into beautiful 4K and HD. And we are live, and we got Nick in the chat already. Hello, Nick. How you doing?
What's up, Nick? I'll be having a live stream with Nick an hour from now over on my channel. We're reviewing a George Strait album.
Yeah, so definitely check out Townsend 505. I'm sure that stream is going to be a lot of fun. But as far as Let It Be goes, this movie was directed by Michael Lindsay Hogg. He would direct a lot of concert movies, including Simon and Garfunkel, The Concert in Central Park, and the Rolling Stones' Rock and Roll Circus. So he had a lot of experience doing behind-the-scenes concert type films, for lack of a better word. To describe this movie as a plot is a little tricky because this is not really a narrative film. It's sort of like a behind the scenes / documentary type. You're basically an eagle eye viewer as the Beatles are creating what is essentially their last album, which is Let It Be. Probably one of their more famous albums. It's got Let It Be on there, which is one of my personal favorite Beatles songs. It's got Get Back on there, which a couple years ago Peter Jackson released a 3.5 hour mini series on the
Oh
creation.
no, it's longer than that. It's like 6 hours.
Jeez. Well, I'm looking forward to reviewing that album. Well, I look forward to watching that when you do that. But long story short, for some strange reason, this movie was released in 1970 and then never released again until now, where it is available on Disney Plus in beautiful HD. Like, seriously, go watch this if you haven't. It just for the visuals alone. And to be completely honest, I didn't know what to expect with this one. Behind the scenes stuff interests me, but also not. But really, I really enjoyed this one, like more than I was expecting to. And I think what it comes down to is you're looking at what it essentially is, the Beatles' last stand, for lack of a better word, because they break up shortly after this album's release. And we can talk all about that. But Jacob, what did you think of the movie?
All right. First off, to add some clarification on why Let It Be wasn't released for the longest time. When they shot the movie, it was shot on 16 millimeter cameras. So when it first came out, the quality of the movie was not great at all. And for some reason, there was just not a push to re-release this movie because of the low quality of cameras they shot the film. However, there was one certain person who was a big fan of the Let It Be movie, and that was Peter Jackson. A lot of the footage that's in the Let It Be documentary was actually restored and reused for the Beatles Get Back. Of course, the Beatles Get Back had a lot more footage that was shot for Let It Be, but Let It Be was condensed into an hour and a half documentary. So if you think about it, Get Back is more like the full story of what you see in Let It Be, and Let It Be is kind of more like the get to the point Cliff Notes version of what happened. And both complement each other very, very well. Watching both, I'm like, okay, if you want like the more in-depth version, you go for the Peter Jackson docuseries. If you just want the one that goes straight to the point, you can watch the original movie. That's a heck of a lot shorter. But cutting to the chase, it was decided to re-release the original documentary after the footage was restored thanks to Peter Jackson. And so that's when the original film was finally released. So my thoughts on Let It Be. And I don't know, Ryan, if you've seen the Peter Jackson Beatles Get Back or not.
I've seen chunks of it.
Okay.
Peter Jackson, bless his soul. I hope I can make something like Lord of the Rings, so I can all my free time can basically be meant to just like restoring old Beatles footage, all like 12 hours into like a 12-hour-ish documentary, and also make They Shall Not Grow Old. Which watch that war movie if you haven't; it is very good. But
Yeah.
I really do appreciate this because it's 90 minutes, so it's a very quick watch. But
Yeah.
I think for me, what I like the most about this movie is that there's saying that there's a narrative here is a little bit odd, but you just see everything going on as told through the dynamics involved with all the Beatles members. It was no
Yeah.
real secret that they were pretty much hating each other at this point, or not hating each other, but wanting to do their own thing. And Jacob, I'm sure you can fill in the blanks on
Mm-hmm.
that one.
Yeah, because, well, comparing the two, Get Back, like I said, is more in depth. Pretty much Let It Be is divided into three chunks, and Get Back fleshes out on it more. The first was the Beatles like writing new songs and preparing for Get Back revealed they wanted to do a TV special originally after the success of their Hey Jude music video. And they wanted to do like a TV special because they missed touring, because they stopped touring for a few years because there was way too many obsessed fans. They were screaming so loud you couldn't hear the Beatles. And they wanted to get out of that and be more of a studio band, but then they missed touring and but wanted to do just a TV special. And so that explains the first third of the movie. The one thing that Let It Be does not address that Get Back does is that at some point during the rehearsals, George Harrison got frustrated and he just walked out. And that's something Get Back addresses. And in Get Back, they are able to talk with George and they decide, okay, we're not going to do the TV special. We're just going to record another album. And so that led to the Let It Be album. And so that leads to the second part of the movie where they're in the studio and they got Billy Preston on the organ. Really awesome musician, by the way. He had a pretty good solo career in the 70s, I must add. But that's when they start recording songs like Let It Be and The Long and Winding Road. And then you get to the last part of the movie where they decide to do one last show for their fans where they go on the rooftop of the Apple studio and you get that epic rooftop concert, which is really awesome to watch. I think it's interesting because I respect Peter Jackson's film because it's like the complete story of what happened. But for me, it's like, it's good seeing it, but I don't know if I necessarily want to see what they do every day for like, they do like 30 days worth of footage. And to me, that's like a little overkill as much as I'm a Beatles fan. And to be honest, I don't want to hear jam sessions of just Yoko Ono singing. They do that at least twice in the docuseries. And Yoko Ono is the worst singer I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I guess I should say that while Yoko Ono does have a singing voice that sounds like if you step on a Lego brick in the middle of the night, the theory the theory that she broke up the Beatles, I think, is incorrect because they were done with each other long before that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, she got into John Lennon's life around the time the Beatles were broken up, so she's definitely an easy target.
for
But
sure,
there's a lot of different factors behind the Beatles breakup. Yoko's not the main reason.
you know,
Uh,
I was watching something on Instagram, and it was this Instagram reel, and it was John Lennon and Chuck Berry, and they were doing like this TV special, and Yoko was there, and Yoko started doing her thing, and the sound engineer slowly just cut off her mic, not at once, but like just slowly, so you can see her on stage, doing that, but no sound, you can't hear her, and even
I've
Chuck.
seen that. I've also, when she started doing it, you just see the look on Chuck Berry's face, his eyes popping out like,
His eyes,
what?
I have never seen Chuck Berry look that way. Like he's just there, like good golly, Miss Molly. Like what was that?
But going back to Let It Be, see, Get Back is like like I said, that's like the full story. Let It Be is just more of, it just cuts to the point. It shows kind of like, to quote another Beatles song, a day in the life of what the Beatles do.
Her songs on the Double Fantasy album ruins an otherwise perfect 80s John Lennon album.
Yeah, like I've not listened to the full album, but like half of that album, like half of that is John Lennon, the other half is Yoko.
Yeah, didn't they do something where they were like in bed for a really long period of time? It was like a protest. Like I'll have to look that up later, but I could have sworn I heard something about that.
I'll tell you this story. John and Yoko did 3 experimental albums before the Beatles broke up, and John Lennon had a solo career. And calling them experimental albums is putting it lightly. There's no singing on this album. One of the songs is like 20 minutes, and it's Yoko going, ah! And then there's another one for another 20 minutes. It's just John and Yoko going, John, Yoko, John, Yoko.
Imagine this ain't.
I swear I am not making that up.
Oh, well, if I ever do a John Lennon deep dive, I know what to avoid.
Yeah, but, just start with John Lennon's first solo album and you'll be good. I think it's called The Plastic Ono Band or something like that.
Yeah, but as far as this movie goes, like you see Yoko, and really the only thing that she does is like dance with John in like a scene, and like that's about it.
Yeah. See, in Get Back, she does singing sessions.
Oh yeah, that. But this is not Get Back.
But it's not Get Back, no. I think I like Let It Be better than Get Back because of that.
Well, another thing I wanted to bring up, and Jacob, you probably know this, but if not, then I guess I'll blow your mind a little bit. Did you know that George Harrison was really big into film producing? He had his own company called Handmade Films, and among his producing efforts includes Time Bandits and Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, apparently, like John Cleese has this great story. Hang on, let me find his. Let me do this. We're doing this live, folks. Because like John Cleese has this great story where he's like, he gets a phone call from Michael Palin and he's like, the money's just come through. And I'm like, from who? And it's like George Harrison of the Beatles. He's paid for the movie. I'm like, wow. So every time you watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail, you can thank George Harrison in part for producing it.
Yeah, he's got a good taste in comedy too, because that movie is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. So
yeah, his and actually, let me walk that back. It's actually not Monty Python. It's Life of Brian. So that's,
he did. Oh, I've just seen Holy Grail.
Well, Life of Brian has gotten a lot of acclaim. That was the first movie that Harrison's company ever produced. He also, like I said, did Time Bandits, which was directed by Terry Gilliam. We all know who he is. Had a heavy hand in a lot of things Monty Python related. He directed this movie, or not directed, but produced this movie with Robbie Coltrane of Harry Potter fame called Nuns on the Run, which Hats Off Entertainment did a really good video on. It's I really want to see it, but it's a really funny movie from what I hear.
Nuns on the Run. I think that sounds like a good parody song. Nuns on the
On
run,
the Run.
nuns on the run.
But I guess what I'm trying to get at with this tangent is that George Harrison had big things that he wanted to do once like the Beatles, like his time with the Beatles ended, and handmade films was one of those things. So I thought that that was interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know George Harrison did that. I just saw him just as a Beatle and having a pretty successful solo career and being a part of, of the super group, the Traveling Wilburys.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, he was in a super group in the late '80s. It was him, Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, Jeff Lynne, the lead singer from Electric Light Orchestra, and Tom Petty, all in one group.
That is a crazy assembly of talent. You know, it's funny you bring up Tom Petty because as of this stream, I just watched The Postman. That's going to be my next in my road to Horizon and American Saga, which The Postman, jeez, that's a boring movie. But Tom Petty is in the movie and he plays a mayor of one of the towns. Like,
Wow,
I'll send you a picture later. Like,
wow, that I didn't know Tom Petty did acting.
no, neither did I. But as soon as I saw him, I'm like, I don't know your face, but I know your voice, and I googled it. It's Tom Petty. So
Wow, whoa,
so small world. But back to Let It Be for a second. You were bringing up earlier about McCartney and Harrison having some tension there. There's a scene, I think, in the first block where they're recording Two of Us, and McCartney gets on Harrison about his guitar playing there. And when that happened, I was like, okay, yeah, I can definitely see that they were not big fans of each other at this point.
mhm. Yeah, I did read. I think the second reason why it took forever for this movie to get released is that some of the surviving Beatles did not really like seeing some of the footage that kind of showed some of the tensions that eventually led to their breakup. But eventually, they were convinced to release it, probably more so on a historical context, because so many people love the Beatles and want to see, especially, it's worth watching. Maybe not to see that aspect of it, which is kind of like probably more the uglier side of what happened. But what I love watching this movie is seeing the Beatles get together, putting aside the tensions they had, and just crafting some great songs. And you see that throughout this 90-minute movie. Uh, like some of the footage in this movie could pass off as the music videos for these songs, especially Let It Be.
Yeah, I it's strange that like McCartney and Ringo would not want this to go out. I'm like, y'all broke up. It's like one of the biggest like rock stories of all time. Like, what are you trying? It seems like what are you trying to hide there? I mean, y'all had success. Like McCartney, I mean, good lord, he's still touring now. So it's
Even
not like
even Ringo's still putting out stuff today.
yeah. He speaking of Tom Petty, Ringo Starr is the drummer for Tom Petty on the song "Won't Back Down," which, if you have not heard that song, go hear that song.
Yeah,
It's a banger. But it's so strange because McCartney and Starr would go on to do great things, like Harrison too, and Lennon for the remainder of his life would do great things too. So I don't know. It just sounds like an ego thing to me.
yeah. I mean, it probably is, but the good thing is, thankfully, he had Peter Jackson who came along and restored the footage. He did his thing, and that sparked interest in the original documentary, and it got restored as well. So I guess in a way, you got to thank Peter Jackson for us talking about this thing.
Yeah, that's very true. I found some footage of like the original release from the 70s of this movie, and I can definitely see in terms of quality why they never released it because let's just say cameras in the 70s are not as high tech as like the technology we have now. I know that's a controversial take, but it just like I'm just grateful that we live in a time where this footage can be restored if someone has the right tools and the skills to do something like that.
That's how I felt about because there was a little bit of debate on what was described as the final Beatles song that came out last year, Now and Then, because some people were sketching like, okay, they took an old John Lennon tape and they used his vocals, but they used AI to tweak it a little bit, for lack of better words. Not that they doctored it up or anything, but they cleaned up the specs of the tape and made it sound clearer. But I think if it's used as a tool to help do something, I don't have a problem with using this technology. Now, if you use it to replace jobs, that's where I take issue with it. But I think with that song Now and Then, I felt like it was made as a labor of love, and it felt like a really good swan song to cap off an amazing legacy. That's how I felt with that song.
Funny enough, Ringo doesn't drum on the song "Won't Back Down." He's just in the music video. Oh well, that's my bad. I knew he was in the video. I didn't know he didn't drum on the song. So thank you, Nick,
He
for
drummed in the video, or at least he did a good job faking it.
well, thank you for the catch on that one, Nick. The original Let It Be, they looked so miserable being around each other. Well, they've been around each other for like a decade plus, like intimately involved in each other's lives. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are or how successful you are. At a certain point, you got to be like, get away from me for like a while.
Yeah, I think there were still a couple scenes in the movie where you could tell, you could see some attention. Like there's another scene. There's like a conversation between Paul McCartney and John Lennon, and they're discussing about some drama going on with George Harrison and some issues that were taking place around the time. So it was still there, but to me, the strength of the film was them singing and performing and crafting these songs.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I had not heard the Let It Be album like straight through in such a long time. I just know like the bigger songs. But while I was like watching it, I was like doing this, like these are all like super good songs.
Yeah, they are. Then we get to the rooftop concert. Much like the rooftop concert was my favorite aspect of Get Back, the Peter Jackson one. It was my favorite part of this movie as well. Uh, just the fact that they went and did that and got to perform some songs. I can only imagine the people in London the day they did that, hearing music and then looking up and seeing that's the Beatles on the roof performing songs that nobody had ever heard before. I'm sure that was an awesome experience.
The parts of that concert for me that like got me laughing was like seeing some of the interviews that they got, like the priest who was saying, "Ah, something free in England for once." Like I love that, and the dude in the car saying like, "Is it the next record? Let's crack it," or something to that effect. And
Yeah,
then like the cops try to shut him down, and I'm like, "You're gonna shut down the Beatles?" Like, no, you're not. Like, what are you
yeah,
playing at? Come on.
yeah. It's like, and then you see the cops get up on the roof, and then the Beatles look at him like, "All right, let's do Get Back one more time." Like,
It's like who are you playing at? And then they the cops had to get like the guy like as a liaison. I want to like I don't know who exactly that guy was, but he's like cops want you to shut it down, and he's like we can't hear you over us playing. Like you're gonna need to speak up. I love that so much.
yeah, I think even Peter Jackson did a version of Get Back that was released for IMAX theaters, which is just the rooftop concert. And I'm like, when I
Interesting.
reviewed Get Back, I'm like, if I had just watched the rooftop concert version, it would have been a 5-star movie.
Hmm.
So
Instead
that
you have
part,
to instead you have to Like, how many times did they breathe in the like the plus hours that this lasts?
Yeah. Yeah. And how many times does Yoko Ono have to start singing or
Oh
whatever
dear.
she does? And oh no, there was one part. So you see Paul McCartney's daughter in the film. She was a little girl that was twirling around on one of the songs and Let It Be. But then Get Back, there's a part where when on one of the times Yoko started singing, like even she was like, "What?" and, this, and then another part, she even imitates Yoko Ono just to poke fun at her. I'm like, oh man,
There was a small part of this movie, and there was a small part of this movie that I thought was pretty nice was seeing Paul and Linda McCarthy's daughter Heather like dancing around the studio. I thought that was a very nice little moment there.
yeah, yeah, and it was cool hearing the Beatles perform all these songs and even do fun little covers in there as well. Uh, I'm addressing this specifically to Nick in the live chat because we've gone through this album before. The Beatles did a cover on their second album with the Beatles. They did a cover of the Smokey Robinson song "You Really Got a Hold on Me," and that's one of the songs that they perform in the Let It Be movie during the second part where they're in the studio. And to me, what's kind of crazy is, see, I like the Beatles version of the song fine, even on the album, but Nick's not a big fan of like the early era Beatles. If you watch our review of Beatles for Sale, he hates that album with a passion.
I'll
But
have to I'll have to look that up later because I'm like I like that album just fine.
yeah, but he's not a fan of some of their covers, and he really thought they didn't do a good job on "You Really Got a Hold on Me." The strange thing is, hearing the Beatles sing it on the Let It Be movie is better than on the original album.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I was listening to the Long and Winding Road on the way home from my workout, and I'm like, yeah, it's still my favorite song on the album. And then I
Yeah.
remember hearing it on the movie, and I'm like, for some reason, I like the movie version better. I can't put my
Oh,
finger on why.
I can tell you, because see that was the recording of the Long and Winding Road. But then when the mo- when but then as the album was about to be released, Phil Spector ended up being the one producing the album. He was a big producer in the '60s. Did a
Are
lot
we
of
talking about like that Phil
that.
Spector?
Yeah, that Phil Spector.
Wow.
Yeah, he produced the album, but he decided to add some strings on the song "The Long and Winding Road." So the original, when the Beatles first recorded it, it didn't have strings. But then on the album, Phil Spector decided to add strings on it, and that's what you hear on the final album and on the radio and stuff like that. And that led to some divisive responses among fans and especially among the Beatles. Paul McCartney hated that addition. So much so that years later, Paul McCartney released an album called "Let It Be Naked," which had the version of the Long and Winding Road that he wanted without the strings.
And he had been very successful as a single, so he could get away with something like that, I
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah, I've heard both. I like the song either way. Hot take: I actually prefer it with the strings. I think
Interesting.
it adds more. I think it adds more emotion to the song.
Nick likes the strings too.
Yeah,
Um, like I said, I don't know how hot of a take this is going to be, but my favorite song on the album is "The Long and Winding Road." The title track is really good. "Get Back" is really good as well. But there's something about "The Long and Winding Road" that just like it hits me right here. I can't put my finger on why, but it's like it's got like that X factor that really just like whenever I hear those first piano notes, I'm like, "Yep, I'm listening to this." Like even though it's a long song for the context of the album, like it's just my favorite.
yeah, yeah. Can't argue with that. That is a great song. I think I've always preferred Let It Be personally. That one is such an epic song, but The Long and Winding Road is really good too. I love Get Back. My other favorite on this, it's not on the Let It Be album, but it's sung in the movie. Don't Let Me Down is an
Yeah,
epic song. And there's
yeah, I
another
love.
good one called, I think it's called I Got a Feeling, which is during the rooftop concert. It's another one of the more up tempo songs in the movie. And I actually never heard that song until I watched Get Back when they
Interesting.
showed the rooftop footage. And I'm like, this is one of my new favorite Beatles songs. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think kind of bringing this review home and putting the period at the end of the sentence. I think that this is one of those behind the scenes movies to where if you're like a novice Beatles fan or a hardcore one, I still give it a recommend because it's not only just like a behind the album kind of thing. Let's get this one
Oh
out of the
no,
way. Yeah.
that's
So as far as like as far as this movie goes, it's not just like a behind the scenes kind of thing. It is that, but it's also a snapshot of basically where the Beatles were going. They were basically going to Splitsville. Like if the Beatles were a plane crash, this would be the black box, sort of, kinda. It's it's one of those it's one of those movies. Like I said, I would recommend to most music fans. Really, whatever Ryan, some Beatles, what a what a time. But Jacob, final thoughts before we go to ratings.
final thoughts. This is a great watch for Beatles fans. If anything, it's just great to see this finally put out, released to the public, restored with better quality, and just hearing good Beatles songs. I will say I recommend both Let It Be and Get Back. I think I would recommend Get Back more for your hardcore Beatles fans that want to see the full story. This one I would say is better if you're just getting into the Beatles. You just want to see them like record music and put on the rooftop concert. It's a lot shorter. It gets right to the point. And I think this one is obviously paced better too because of it. But I do recommend both at the end of the day. And if you want other good Beatles movies as well, I also recommend Hard Day's Night, great movie. Yellow Submarine, very trippy animated movie, but it has that. But it is fun to watch. As weird and wacky as the story gets, but there's some great songs on there. I'm not a big fan of Help, that movie personally. It gets too like the slapstick is too much in that movie, and the Beatles are not actors. Let me preface that. But again, the songs in that movie are really good. So I think if you want like four really good movies involving the Beatles, Hard Day's Night, Yellow Submarine, Peter Jackson's Get Back, and then Let It Be. Those are the four.
Kind of on a bit of an unrelated note, wasn't it in A Hard Day's Night where one of the members was like in a scene and he was like really hungover and he was like walking like along this river, I think? Because I have not seen A Hard Day's Night
I,
in a hot minute. I
there is
really
a
need
character
to.
walking along a river. I don't think he was hung over. But yeah, there's a part where Ringo does something like that in A Hard
I
Day's
think
Night.
I think that's what I'm thinking of. I'll have to like look it up later.
Yeah,
But by the way, Jacob, I don't know if you've ever seen Jacob Collins's brother and Nick, but they look eerily similar.
yeah, that's what Jacob keeps saying, and he showed me the picture, and it is an uncanny resemblance, actually.
Yeah, and then in all seriousness, I've never seen the movie, but I've been meaning to check it out and still wanted Beatles Lord of the Rings directed by Stanley
That
Kubrick.
would have been terrible. That would have
It,
been
it would have
terrible.
been. It would
Like
have
the
been for
Beatles are
sure.
not actors, and I can't. As artistic as Stanley Kubrick is, he would have made it too weird.
Yeah, but I assume, Jacob, you're going to give this a 5 out of 5?
Um, no, 4.5 out of
Yeah,
5.
I'm with you there, 4.5. This was a very enjoyable watch. Ringo and a Hard Day's Night. Also, Ringo was hungover when they
Okay,
made
so
that
I
scene for
didn't know
Ryan.
that.
Right. Thank you, Nick. Nick has been the unofficial third man of this stream. But what did you all think of the Beatles' "Let It Be"? If you have seen it, let us know in the live chat or later on in the version when it goes off the air, the recorded version.
The replay.
That's it. Thank you. Nick looks like my brother. Yeah, we just talked about that. But Jacob, it's a privilege to do this with you every month. You were just on the channel a little bit ago reviewing Tarzan with me, which I'm very grateful for you joining me for that.
Yeah, that's a great
You
movie.
are going to be streaming with Nick in just about 20 minutes
About
talking
20
about
minutes.
some George Strait.
Yep, his fifth studio album, Something Special, released in 1985. Also, coming on my channel this Wednesday will be the next Discussing DreamWorks. Ryan Cam will join, and then Jacob Collins, 3D Movie Cinema, will join us as well. Since he was on for our Shrek videos, I figured it'd be cool to have him on for the spinoff Puss in Boots from 2011. That will be our discussion Wednesday. And I'm actually having a busy week as far as streams go. I'll be on the Sound Lab Studios channel tomorrow night. We'll be reviewing Rush's debut album. And then after we do the Puss in Boots thing, I'll be on Scott's channel, Scrap Dog Scott's. We're reviewing the Genesis album, A Trick of the Tail, which is Phil Collins' first album on lead vocals. That's an amazing album, by the way.
Yeah. So
And then I forgot one more. And then
go ahead.
Thursday night, Nick and Scott will be joining me for my continued Elton John review series. We're reviewing the album Honky Chateau, which features two of his biggest hits, Honky Cat, and one of my personal favorites, Rocket Man.
Yeah. Honky Cat is an absolute banger. But subscribe to Jacob, linked in the description. I believe I will be on that Genesis review as well, because I have been reviewing all of Genesis's albums with Briar and Nick. And
Yeah, man, I'm doing I'm on a separate video series with Scott on his channel, and Nick joined on some of those.
My bad. But yeah, Briar's Music Source and Townsend 505 and we are making our way through all of Genesis's albums, and it's been a great time so far.
Yeah, I've watched some of those. You're going to get to some great stuff coming up. Nursery Crime is awesome. Then you got Foxtrot, which has the 23-minute album closer, Supper's Ready. That one is wild. Singing About a Pound's pretty good. And then you got the concept album, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. That one is very weird, but still pretty cool. And then you got A Trick of the Tail, Phil Collins solo album, and it rocks. I can't wait for you to hear that one, especially. Ripples.
But subscribe to Jacob, link in the description. As far as this channel goes, Jacob's been 3D Movie Cinema has been kind enough to remind me of these. Small Talk on this channel every Tuesday. Episode 43 will be dropping tomorrow. Talking Silence every Friday. We have officially crossed over into the Hannibal TV show. It's been a great time. Also, he plumb forgot that he is going to be on Discussing DreamWorks Wednesday. So there that is.
Wow.
I'm
glad I reminded you.
Next time for Genesis, me, Ryan, and Briar from Briar's Music Showcase will be reviewing Nursery Crime. It's Music Showcase. I am slowly becoming.
What'd you say? Was it Briar's Music Selection? Is that what you said?
Briar's Music Source. It has come to my attention that I'm getting more and more useless after 9:30 at night. But But talking silence every Friday, small talk every Tuesday, and then I have my Road to the Horizon, where I'm covering every Kevin Costner directed movie. I want to thank everyone for checking out the review of Dances with Wolves. That review did better than I ever anticipated. So I appreciate shopping on Wednesday, and then the next Wednesday will be review of Open Range, and then the week after that will be Horizon when I do see it in theaters. But more content coming along the way. Next month, Jacob will be back doing Life in the Movies episode 99, and we haven't chosen one yet, but I have a couple in mind that I'm going to run past him off stream. But thank you all so much for watching. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you all in the next one. You all have a very good night.
Good night.